Bitcoin crashing to 53K with the German government selling, Mt. Gox FUD. We have a lot to cover here, so stay tuned. All right, y'all, let's just jump straight into this. So right now, I want to jump into really what happened, like play by play. And this was on July 3rd, that night before the July 4th crash. I want to talk about what went down, and we're going to go over what I saw actually in the order flow. So the actual real trades that were coming through. I want to, before we go into that, I do want to talk a little bit about how we have multiple FUD events that are occurring at the same time, and I really believe that this is a psyops. And this is what I guess his name is Key or Kai Young Jun, I guess. Probably just butchered that. I think he has a good take on this, okay? He's basically saying it's a psyops, and if you actually look at the overall liquidity, that this move or this FUD is not likely to create much more of a move than we've already had. I was actually watching the tape. So this is the tape here on your left. These are actual trades that are coming in. So when someone hits a market buy or market sell button, they will come in here, and you have perpetuals or futures contracts on one side and spot, which is really more important in terms of direction, momentum on the left. Now, one of the things that I noticed when I was looking at the tape, this was on the 3rd, so before July 4th, I noticed that you had a bunch of really large selling coming in right at the open. That's not necessarily like highly unusual, but the weird thing about this was it seemed very planned. Right when the open happened, it was just like hammer, 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 hammer. And it just didn't stop. The interesting thing about that is after, I guess it was about 6 hours, and we got into July 4th, this was about 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you had the the German government actually made a transaction and sent Bitcoin to an exchange. And then the market nuked. What a lot of people don't understand, though, is it nuked before that. Why is that important? Because I think this was really planned. I think this was orchestrated by a trading firm, maybe more than one, but probably one player who saw this as an opportunity, probably had inside information. Obviously, it's speculation, but I just find it very strange that they were shorting so aggressively going into a holiday when you know it's going to be very illiquid. Okay, so what am I getting at here? Let's look at the charts, because I think this is a really, really interesting situation when you actually look at the technicals here. If we zoom out here, you can see that we are below the 200-day moving average. We talk a lot about this moving average. It's very important, but it took so many things coming together at once to break below the 60K level. You had Mt. Gox FUD that started up here. We knew about that in the previous videos, I think 2 videos now. And the German government started selling, or at least sending, Bitcoin to exchanges up here. I find it very interesting that you had all of this selling happening on one of the most liquid trading sessions of the year, or trading days of the year, because it's a holiday. And I don't know if I don't think 4th of July is typically on a weekday. Maybe it is, but I don't remember it being on a weekday recently. But that's what made this unique. Okay, why am I pointing that out? Because if you're on a day where the traditional markets aren't open, meaning you don't have the ETF trading, you don't really have big traders doing anything because they're celebrating 4th of July. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that most people just believe that, hey, it's a holiday, I don't have to do much. So it just kind of is like that. Someone took advantage of that. There's no liquidity on the order books, not a lot of volume. Well, there was a lot of volume, but there wasn't a lot of liquidity to soak up this, really, which was an attack, in my opinion. I think this was someone that said, we're about to cause a big cascade liquidation while no one's paying attention. It's going to catch people off guard. They're going to look at their phones, and they're going to immediately sell when they see this thing below 60K. And that's what happened. So what am I getting at? Why am I starting off with this? This is probably the bottom. If it took German government, Mt. Gox, on one of the most liquid trading days of the year when no one's paying attention, to get you down here, you need significantly more bad news to get you to some of these levels that people are talking about. I see a lot of people talking about 45K, and I see a lot of people talking about, 52K, 50K. Let's look at this objectively. So I understand why people think it can go a lot lower, because if you look at the monthly, you don't really get, real support until you get close to here. But, okay, again, TA really has to be used in the appropriate context, meaning TA without fundamentals and fundamentals without TA are not really that great, honestly. Like both of them together really give you a more complete picture of what's happening. And I just went over kind of the fundamentals, so to speak, that are outside of the TA. How you got here matters, is what I'm trying to say. And don't get me wrong, it would be definitely reasonable if we did come to this area. I just don't believe that you're going to go there very easy considering what it took to get there. So let's talk about what I think could happen going forward. Again, this is potentially in play if you get further FUD, if you get something that goes wrong. 45 is a reasonable level. I think that you will hold this 52 level, and we can see on the weekly chart that there's a little bit of support there. You were there for a little bit, and that's basically where you kind of are now. I mean, yes, it's about 5%, but on the higher time frame, I would say this zone here is pretty much the same area. And if I'm a whale, I'm probably not caring too much the difference between 55 and 52. This is where I think the bottom will be, mainly because of some of the economic events on the calendar. You really can just kind of see where this is going when you look at some of the events coming up. Let me just go into that. Tomorrow, or you may be seeing this actually late, so today or tomorrow, whenever you get this, on Tuesday, Jerome Powell is going to be talking, all right? He's also going to be speaking. I think he's testifying before Congress. I think he's going to be speaking on Wednesday, or he is going to be speaking on Wednesday. And then you get the core CPI and the CPI print in general that's coming in, and also unemployment claims. This is going to be important, obviously. And you also have PPI. Let's say that this comes in cooler. That's immediately people are going to want to bid Bitcoin at that point. Not saying that this, takes you back into the 60K range, but it's going to give people at least a reason to bid, okay? And shorts are probably going to cover. It's just kind of trading one-on-one kind of stuff there. This gets more interesting though, okay? So he's speaking next Monday, and you really don't have a lot going on until you get to FOMC. So this FOMC, if we do get some of these data points that start to show the economy slowing or more unemployment, things like that, Bitcoin is going to respond very strongly to that. And I think that what you're likely to see is by the time you get to this Jackson Hole, if you don't know what Jackson Hole is, so this will be next month. Jackson Hole Symposium is on August the 22nd. I will be shocked if you do not have a super dovish Fed talking about cutting rates by the time you get to this Jackson Hole Symposium. In 2022, this Jackson Hole was the pivot moment for like the next year. The market nuked after that. The reason why this Jackson Hole is important is you don't have an FOMC the next month after this, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure you don't have an FOMC after that. And even if you do, it's a speech where they like to do a lot of forward guidance. And I could see how it could be the reverse of 2022 in the sense that he's going to start to come out, I think, and be really dovish. So what I'm saying is, if Bitcoin can just hang on for the next 4 or 5 weeks and just not, totally just crap the bed, there's a good chance that you're going to get some dovish Fed conversations that I think will push us back into the range and eventually start to push us back up to the highs. Now, obviously, this is going to have a lot to do with the election, and we can see that Polymarket has Trump still up quite a bit, about 61%. Again, not political here. This is not a political YouTube channel, but this is very important for crypto because this is the pro-crypto candidate, and Biden is, not that he's really anti-crypto. I mean, I don't think he really has an opinion, but we know that some of the people in his cabinet haven't been as friendly to crypto. I think that's pretty objective. So at some point, if we get closer to the election and these numbers are similar, you're likely to see people start to price in Bitcoin or price in a Trump election. And this is why I'm saying you can really see how this is playing out. This is probably the dip before things get substantially better, with the dovish Fed being more accommodative, i.e. injecting liquidity into the markets. And then on top of that, you have a very likely scenario where Trump wins. That's very bullish for Bitcoin and crypto. It doesn't make a lot of sense for the price to be here when you really put that in perspective. Obviously, we need some things to play out. This is why I'm saying FOMC is going to be really important. We don't want to see that go up a lot because that would decrease the chances that the Fed would come out dovish. But even if it's hotter, I still think they're going to come out dovish. And I don't want to make this a macro video, but it's kind of obvious that they do not really have an incentive to keep rates up. They're only risking breaking things for getting inflation down to their imaginary 2% number that really doesn't make any sense when you really think about it. It's arbitrary is what I'm trying to say. And I think they're just going to be okay with 3%, and they're going to say, all right, we did good enough. Let's not risk breaking things. So even if it's a little hotter, I think the market's not going to like it initially, but then cooler minds are going to realize it doesn't even matter at this point. They need to cut rates because they're a bureaucracy, and they're going to do what's in their own best interest. not necessarily what's in everyone else's best interest. And I'm not even saying they're bad people or evil people. I'm just saying this is just how their system is incentivizing them. Their incentive is to just make sure they don't break things. They say that, employment and inflation are the two mandates. There's one above that, in my opinion, and that is financial stability. And they will risk financial stability in an election year the longer they keep rates up. And they know this. They're not stupid people. They do realize that this is, at some point, they're risking that. So let's talk a little bit more about the charts, okay? So ETH is looking really good here, in my opinion. So it went all the way down to 2,800. Has had a couple of nice bounces here. I think the bottom's in. It might try to, take out this low again. But I think you're going to go right back up to this, probably to this trend line here, back up to roughly, 3,400, maybe a little bit higher within the next few weeks. Again, this is assuming that we get softer data and or some sort of dovish Fed. Solana, absolutely beautiful chart here. And it looked very scary whenever we had the nuke on July 4th and the day after that, I think it was. But it's held. I mean, if it held while Bitcoin did all that, I think the bottom is in here. It's holding above this level. You can see that it's forming this nice little wedge here. I think this is going to end up breaking back up to this level here, and it'll probably chop around until Bitcoin really starts to get its footing. But this is looking really good. I think this is one of the stronger charts. And as you can see, it's one of the only majors, or maybe the only major out of, say majors are Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana, that is above its 200-day moving average. So it's slightly above its 200-day moving average. You can see that ETH is right below the 200-day moving average, had a few rejections off of it, and Bitcoin is right under its 200-day moving average. You can see that Pepe finding some support here. I do think you're going to get a bounce on Pepe. It's above its 200-day moving average, which is insane when you think about it. It's stronger than Bitcoin and ETH. From a technical standpoint, this is actually an exponential moving average, which is slightly different, but it is still structurally stronger so far than Bitcoin and ETH. If we look at PopCat, this thing has had some wild swings, y'all. Some wild swings. So this thing, I mean, it nuked. So let's just talk about this bounce. It bounced like over 150%. Then it nuked down all the way back down 50%, and then bounced from that level like 60%, and now it's back down. This thing is just wild. Really good to trade if you can catch some of these moves. I do think this is going to find its footing and end up coming back up to this level. I don't know how long it takes, but it is clear to me that I think this one does have a lot more gas in the tank, so to speak, if Bitcoin starts to look a lot better, which I think, again, I do think that's coming in the next few weeks, maybe even sooner. So Pepe, Bonk, another one, as you can see, it's above its 200-day moving average. Again, memes above their 200-day moving average. Wild. They're very strong. This is a very strong chart now, considering how many times it tried to break down. Yeah, this is likely to go higher. And this is surprising me because I thought this was going to... When this was nuking, I was like, yeah, it's over for Bonk. And it definitely proved me wrong, as you can see, just right back above it. That's a lot of support there. Okay, it doesn't mean that it will hold if something, Bitcoin takes another leg down, but if Bitcoin holds, this thing is likely to go back up to the highs, in my opinion. And that is a pretty large move here. A lot of the other altcoins are looking pretty good here, but we'll cover that in the Discord. We'd love to have you there. We like to go more in depth. I think that's all I'm going to cover today. And until next time, happy hunting, friends.